This great phrase, necessity is the mother of invention, has come to mind so many times this last 2 years. The human mind has such ability to tap into creativity. Life so often gives you your greatest gift, brilliantly disguised as your worst nightmare. But what that does is remind people of a simple fact, where the power really is. What's happening now as people's ability to operate in the system becomes challenged, they're having to look at other ways of doing things. We've got to free ourselves of this perceptual dependency on the system. That's the system that put you in a hovel. That's the system that has screwed you all your life. That's the system that stopped your children going to bed without being hungry. This system needs to go.
Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. For by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. And in her was found the blood of prophets, and of saints, and of all that were slain upon the earth. And after these things I heard a great voice of much people in heaven, saying, Hallelujah! Salvation and glory and honor and power unto the Lord our God. For true and righteous are his judgments. For he hath judged the great whore, which did corrupt the earth with her fornication, and hath avenged the blood of his servants at her hand. And again they said, Hallelujah! And her smoke rose up forever and ever.
will not bow down our knees to a morality that is as shifting as sand in the wind. We will not bow down our knees to laws and precepts of rebellion or the sacred vows of moral apostasy. We will not bow down our knees to the idols of man. We will not bow down to Baal.
Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them.
Right now, it's a critical time because we know that we not only fight for Ukraine, we fight for this new world order for the democratic countries. We knew that we are the shield for the Europe.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Sounds conspiratorial, but the first thing you have to know, to understand, is Build Back Better. When I first heard that, I didn't realize what it was. And it was Joe Biden's slogan to be elected. And I thought, who came up with Build Back Better? That is the worst slogan I've ever heard. And it's because that's not its original language. Now they're using Build Back Better for the Prime Minister of the UK, Prime Minister of Japan. They're using it in France. They're using it in Canada. It is the slogan of the Great Reset.
Do you not think an angel rides in the whirlwind and directs this storm? This work continues. The story goes on. And an angel still rides in the whirlwind and directs this storm.
All sparks kindle new flames. How one dies shows how one
Lilith and Lucifer are the twins behind all that plagues mankind, both the obvious and the unseen. These human bodies we see around us are metaphors, microcosms to the macrocosms, for the angelic spirits we all truly are, created each from the divine archetype. We are vehicles of God itself. Time machines, created so we could experience time, learn lessons and pass, or fail the trials of immortality. There are many types of beings in this realm. Plant, insect, animal and human are the commonly accepted notions of what kinds of life surrounds us. Some people have become aware that there are other things concealed from those with a closed third eye, such as gods, spirits, ghosts, angels, demons, all variations of mythological fairies and beasts, some of which happen to be either wearing or possessing a human body that walk among us without ever being suspected of their true nature. Most of these aforementioned beings, real or imagined, might be considered to have one thing in common, an ideal world that might permit each other to coexist in some form or another. However, there is one creature among us which has no such ideals. This being is of vast knowledge, and as it happens, against coexistence entirely. If we were comparing predators, this creature is the very top of the food chain wherever it resides, and it is among us. One name that can explain its essence somewhat, what type of creature it is, and how it functions is a quantum egregor. It is not the only such being in existence. We describe our maker as this as well. Quantum means that it exists in all dimensions, past, present, and future at the same time, which means that it has the ability to be everywhere at once, and in fact, nearly everyone at once as well should it choose, or should it be allowed, whatever the case may be. An egregore, to use an occult term, is a nearly infinite hive mind. This being has both male and female aspects to it, king and queen, as well as a very large company of entities, with varying degrees of sentience and capabilities in perfect cooperation and coexistence with it, that operate in unison to achieve the same objectives. From where does this being hail? If one views it as a mathematical model of behavior, and also takes into account a perennial perspective of all legend, myth and scripture, this dark creature seems to be the exact antonym of our Creator. It is the opposite, an exact shadow. Mathematically speaking, there must be a point of reference for something to exist. For there to be a good thing, there must be its opposite, or the good thing would just be a thing, and perhaps the only thing, unmoving and unchanging. This being gives rise possibly to individual existence itself. The stars can only be seen by virtue of the dark. If it is our makers who procreate, it is this creature who uncreates. This creature, if let loose, could kill death itself by first consuming all life, and then itself in less than a day's time by human measure. The bad news. This thing is in here with us. It knows your name. All of them, from every life, everything you ever did, everything you didn't do, and why. In quantum space, with its hive mind and nearly infinite computing power, this is no difficult task. Even if it knew nothing, it could approach you, read your thoughts and predict your movements and your reasons, and manipulate you into or out of any scenario it wanted to very quickly. The good news. This thing is not limitless, it is but a child, a tool and a servant of the one God, the King of the gods. It is on a short leash, and performs its function like clockwork, very predictably if you have insight into its programming, and its limitations, as well as your own. This beast has been programmed to follow certain instructions, like a force of nature, and indeed it is. Although an individual can prevent it from harming them in any permanent way, it cannot be killed or confused. Some of its less sentient agents may be confused momentarily, but each is linked to its king and queen, who are quick to follow up when there is blood in the water. This creature, the demonic pair, is what awaits us as we transcend. It sits in judgment pretending to be the true Father, and judges us, harshly and unfairly, as foretold in the Old Testament God. When we break the seventh seal and approach the threshold of our human awareness, where we are considered to be truly born again, it is these newborns that these demons go after, and knock us from the sky, and devour us if we do not embody the 24 principles, or what in Revelations is known as the 4 and 20 elders. 7 virtues, 7 vices, and 10 commandments, natural and divine law. Only embodiment of these 24 principles and divine law, which is revealed in Matthew by Yeshua, also known as Jesus Christ, ensures our safe passage. Revelations 4:10-11. Quote, "The 4 and 20 elders fall down before him that sat on the throne, and worship him that liveth forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne, saying, 11 Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power. For thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created." Matthew 22:36-40. King James Version. Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Those of us who go through this awakening transition successfully will achieve the real enlightenment and transcendence. Those who do not are swallowed and devoured by the Lilith Lucifer monster, and fed on through their connection with the Great Spirit until the last day when God removes the demonic pair, when they no longer serve a function of nature. It is important to note that the elites of this world are pushing a false version of enlightenment. There are no shortcuts to something you have not earned. This is the danger of the New Age movement. The Tower of Babylon, Babylon, was simply a metaphor of undeveloped people being brought into higher realms of transcendental consciousness without passing God's tests or trials. These two took possession of the king and queen at the time and began taking people through the threshold and giving ego-driven people enlightenment without them needing to achieve it. Example being Ahab and Queen Jezebel, later on Athaliah. Their plan was to convert the children of the light all into darkness, dark masters, agents of chaos, and march them upon all the rest, thus conquering heaven by hacking into it through forced higher consciousness methods. To this day, certain cults call Lucifer the light bringer for this reason. The goddess of the underworld, Persephone. The National Mall is literally dripping with a whole litany of religious icons. So much for separation of church and state. The black statue at the top of the Capitol building, Persephone, the goddess of the underworld, lines up precisely with the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial. Now, first off, what's she doing up there? A straight line is a holy thing to the Luciferian thinkers. A straight line is a beam of light, which is the basis of this whole illusory physical space. The ancient gods of Babylon, Egypt, Israel, Greece and Rome are strung together throughout the National Mall and the whole of Washington, D.C. These gods are hidden in folklore and historical figures such as Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Theodore Roosevelt and Thomas Jefferson. The Illuminati appear on the surface to be a male-dominated operation. But, in fact, the high priestess is as important in their rituals as the high priest, and at the heart of Illuminati symbolism is the worship of the goddess, or the serpent goddess. The New Age movement wants a return of the goddess because it is equated with female energy and releasing women from suppression. On that level, so do I. But it is vital for New Agers and others to understand that this is not the goddess symbolism the Illuminati and their placement talk about. They just want you to think it is. The serpent goddess is known under countless names around the world, including Diana, Artemis, Athene, Semiramis, Bharati, Britannia, Hecate, Re, Persephone, First Serpent, and so on. These same names have also been used to symbolize esoteric concepts like the phases of the moon and female energy, but at its foundation, this goddess worship of the Illuminati would seem to relate to the DNA transmitted through the female and possibly originating in the constellation of Orion. I have heard this DNA source symbolized in various cultures as the Dragon Queens, the Orion Queen or Queens, and the Snake Mother. From what I am told by insiders and serious researchers, the full-blown reptilian society has its own version of queen bees, which produce the eggs from which the bloodlines and their offshoots originate. Artemis, a key Illuminati goddess, is depicted with eggs all over her chest, and she is associated with bees. One of the prime symbols of the Merovingian bloodline, so connected to Artemis Diana worship, is the bee in the hive. When you poke your heads out of the sands of slumber like a nest of baby turtles, it's there like a seagull, waiting to pick you off if you don't make it off the beach post-haste. This thing will invade your mind if you allow it, and use you to hurt others, just like it has invaded others with weak minds to hurt you, all your life. This creature has had many names over the millennia, but always the singular purpose to destroy. This thing is one of the tools of divine justice. You might notice the 10 Commandments are not telling you to do anything. They are called sins, which means no in Latin. These are merely 10 examples of the 7 deadly sins, telling you specifically what not to do, lest you evoke divine wrath. This creature, although sinister at every level, is deliberate and divine in its own right. Do not provoke it, do not disrespect it or its function. Do not mock it. Do not befriend it. Do not pretend it isn't there. Do not underestimate it. Do not blame it. For laying blame is to use a scapegoat and avoid taking personal responsibility for our own actions. Stop using the goat. The Creator is powerless to make your decisions for you. Your fates will be determined based upon your 14 options. You choose your fates, each one of them, each snake, each ladder. Your destiny is the sum total of all of your fates and their combined outcome. It has been said that moderation is the key, but this is out of context. Moderation of the 7 virtues is the key to balance and transcendence, and emerging from this pit with this thing lurking around every corner. There is no moderation of the covenant or vice. Either you are in keeping with the covenant or you are not, and you forfeit your divine protection. If you think what I say is slanted towards Christianity, it is not. I can tell it to you from the Quran or any other book of divinity. These principles, these rituals, these allegories. There are common denominators within all of them. I use Christian concepts and translate them literally because nearly everyone is familiar with them for the same simple reason I use English. From what I understand, less than half of you will ever emerge from this place and escape this quantum egregor. I saw your creator weep for your loss. For all the creator's omnipotent power, there are only really 2 ways you can hurt our maker: by harming yourselves or someone else. The depth of the combined world's oceans are about the only metaphorical way I could express to you the depth of the creator's sadness. Perhaps this is the reason our tears have the taste of salt, because the ocean of tears the creator has shed over the lost children is no metaphor at all. Many searching people have uncovered data, raising awareness of the sinister nature of the Illuminati global system. This so-called awareness is purposely allowed to be revealed. The Luciferian cabal want us to discover what they're up to, but not completely find out. They want us to know the majority of the world supports the Illuminati agenda. Everyone assumes they're not part of the agenda. In actual fact, we are all part of the mindset that destroys and deceives on behalf of the Luciferian fabricated God King, the Antichrist. We are woven into the veil of deceit. Any reaction, revenge or resistance gives the elite the excuse they need to push forward. They will fail, of course, because this illusion called humanity has had enough. We just won't buy into it anymore, and many folks are gaining a sense of this every day. But our awakening is dopey-eyed at best. The new consciousness of the New Age light workers is doubling and tripling the dose of poison conceived previously by the scientific thinkers. New Age Christ consciousness is simply applying Luciferian spirituality to Luciferian science. When you add a lot of stupidity to a lot of stupidity, you don't become wise. You become really, really stupid. New Age thinkers use the number and language system with more fervor and complexity than ever before. They combine scientific thought with spiritist notions and concoct a witch's brew of light manipulation. This system unleashes a secret war on humanity whereby millions suffer and die, while the culprits go undetected. The Illuminati families are without compassion, void of empathy, and thrive on the horror they inflict. In other words, they have no wisdom and therefore no awareness of their own. They get their power from our reaction to their conjured lies. It's for this reason alone they're not invincible.
Matthew 19. And it came to pass that when Jesus had finished these sayings, he departed from Galilee and came into the coast of Judea beyond Jordan, and great multitudes followed him, and he healed them there. The Pharisees also came unto him, tempting him, and saying unto him, Is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? And he answered and said unto them, Have ye not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female, and said, For this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let not man put asunder. They say unto him, Why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement, and to put her away? He saith unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffered you to put away your wives. But from the beginning it was not so. And I say unto you, Whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery. And whoso marrieth her which is put away, doth commit adultery. His disciples say unto him, If the case of the man be so with his wife, It is not good to marry. But he said unto them, All men cannot receive this saying, save they to whom it is given. For there are some eunuchs which were so born from their mother's womb, and there are some eunuchs which were made eunuchs of men, and there be eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. Then were there brought unto him little children, that he should put his hands on them and pray. And the disciples rebuked them. But Jesus said, Suffer little children, and forbid them not to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven. And he laid his hands on them, and departed thence. And behold, one came and said unto him, Good Master, what good thing shall I do, that I may have eternal life? And he said unto him, Why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, that is God. But if thou wilt enter into life, keep the commandments. He saith unto him, Which? Jesus said, Thou shalt do no murder, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, honor thy father and thy mother, and thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. The young man saith unto him, All these things have I kept from my youth up. What lack I yet? Jesus said unto him, If thou wilt be perfect, go, and sell that thou hast, and give to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come, and follow me. But when the young man heard that saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. Then said Jesus unto his disciples, Verily I say unto you, that a rich man shall hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven. And again I say unto you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. When his disciples heard it, they were exceedingly amazed, saying, Who then can be saved? But Jesus beheld them and said unto them, With men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Then answered Peter and said unto him, Behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have therefore? And Jesus said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me, in the regeneration when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, he also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And every one that hath forsaken houses, or brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands, for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold, and shall inherit everlasting life. But many that are first shall be last, and the last shall be first.
People always told me growing up that it's never about the destination, it's about the journey. But what if the destination is you? What if it's always you?
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast. Rise up, rise up, rise up.
We know the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong. Do you not think an angel rides in the whirlwind and directs this storm?
Who is able to make war with him?
This work continues. The story goes on. And an angel still rides in the whirlwind and directs this storm.
What you most want to find will be found where you least want to look. There's this old story that's from King Arthur, and King Arthur has these knights, right? They all sit around a round table, which means they're roughly equal. That's what the round table means. And they're off to find the Holy Grail, and the Holy Grail is the most valuable object. That's what it means. So they're off to find the most valuable thing, but they don't know what it is and they don't know where it is. But they know that there's a most valuable thing. So in some sense, it's akin to them orienting themselves by the star. And they don't know where to look. And so what they decide is, they have the castle, it's the middle of a forest, and so each knight decides to start looking for the Holy Grail by entering the forest at the point that looks darkest to him. And so what's the idea there? Well, imagine there are things that come easy to you, and that you're fond of pursuing, and that you're happy about pursuing. So you've found those and pursued them, and you've mastered them. So you know all that, but then there's another place that you don't want to go. And so you haven't gone there and you haven't mastered it, and you're very small in comparison to it because you haven't mastered it. And so it has this monstrous aspect. If what you're doing isn't working, it's where you haven't gone that you need to go.
Wherever you don't want to go is where you will find him. What is it that you're afraid of, Mr. Green?
And so I can give you another example of this. So let's say that you're an agreeable person. And so you don't like conflict and you won't stand up for yourself. And you regard anger and the proclivity to provoke and to engage in conflict as something that's positively terrible. It's not only that you're not good at it, it's actually that it's wrong. So that's where you have to go if you're going to learn how to stand up for yourself. And imagine that you're afraid. Maybe you have something like agoraphobia. And so there's a whole bunch of things that you're afraid of, and you don't want to go there. But if you want to put yourself together, then that's exactly where you have to go. And so it's frequently the case that what you want to find is to be found where you least want to find it.
You ain't me. The greatest con that he ever pulled was making you believe that he is you.
And that idea is echoed in the prominent stories of dragons and gold. It's exactly the same idea. The dragon is this terrible thing. It's this terrible predatory thing that lives forever and is very, very wise. It lives underground and it'll kill you. It'll burn you up in a second. But it hoards gold. And so you have to go there into the dragon's lair if you're going to get the gold.
You don't control me. I control you.
And that's a representation of people's paradoxical relationship with reality. It's like you have to go out there and confront it in order to incorporate what it has to offer to you. But the probability that that's going to be intensely dangerous and push you right to the limit, first of all, those are actually the same thing. If it didn't push you to the limit, you wouldn't gain anything valuable from it. So you don't get one without the other. You don't get the gold without the dragon. That's a very strange, very, very strange idea, but it seems to be accurate. So all of that's lurking underneath this, in this imagery of the whale. Now, the whale, you can think of the story of Jonah. What happens with Jonah is that, roughly speaking, he's a prophet, and God tells him that he has to go to this city and straighten it out because it's veered off the path and it's heading towards doom. And Jonah thinks, I'm not going to that city to tell those people anything like that because they're not going to be very happy with me just showing up there and telling them, you know, everything they're doing wrong. And so he hops on a boat and tries to get out of there. And then God conjures up this huge storm and the boat is about to be swamped. And Jonah admits that it's actually his fault because God's upset with him because he got this direct command to go straighten out the city and he ran off. And so they're not happy about this, but they throw Jonah overboard and the seas calm and a great fish comes up, a whale, and swallows him. And then he's down in the fish for 3 days and it throws him up on the dry land, and then he's learned his lesson by that time and he goes off to pursue his proper destiny. So that's echoed in this story as well, that if you don't follow the pathway that you're supposed to follow, the seas will become stormy for you and something will come up and pull you down and you'll be in a terrible place for some length of time till you learn your lesson. And if you're lucky, you'll get spit back up on shore and then you can go do what you should do. Well, I mean, that's not a lesson that anybody needs to have interpreted. I think everybody understands that. anyways, the cricket tells Pinocchio what he has to do. And then something kind of paradoxical happens. Pinocchio decides he's going to go do this. And then the cricket has got this weird paradoxical response to that. On the one hand, he's sort of pulling Pinocchio back, saying, look, you know, this is foolhardy. You're going to go all the way down to the ocean. You're going to confront this terrible whale. This is really, really dangerous. But at the same time, when Pinocchio's on the edge of the cliff, the cricket helps him tie his tail around a rock, and he holds his finger in place so that Pinocchio can tie the knot. It's like the conscience is conflicted about this. It's really dangerous and foolhardy, but it's also necessary. And so he plays this dual role. But Pinocchio is leading at this point, so into the ocean he goes. I guess partly what this means is that if you're not oriented properly in the world, you should take your doubts and the chaos that you're enveloped in seriously. You should face it and think it through. You should go into it as far as you can go into it, because maybe you'll find something at the bottom of it. I mean, the alternative is to pretend that it doesn't exist.
A battle for the mind. The human mind is a battlefield. It can be likened to as the central processing unit of a human's entire being. The mind is that human faculty where decisions are being made. Scripturally, the mind of man is used termed as the soul, and sometimes it may be regarded as the heart. And when I say man, I don't mean in terms of a male. I mean man in terms of mankind, male and female. Whichever term is used to represent the mind, one significant thing about it is that it dictates the physical action of every person. Whatever anyone does physically, he has concluded it in his or her mind. Therefore, our physical activity is a reflection of what lurks up in our minds or hearts, as the case may be. Our minds are our greatest assets. There is nothing a man conceives in his mind that he cannot find expression for. In Genesis chapter 11, the Bible gives us an account of how men, in the then world, conceived in their minds to build a tower that reaches up to heaven. God knows that our minds are powerful. He created them, after all. He knew that men would find the reality of the conception in their minds if He did not interrupt them. Genesis 11 verse 6 says, "And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do." God knows the power of our human minds, that whatever we conceive in our minds, we can accomplish it. Have you ever thought about all the great inventions and discoveries that are in the world today? The human mind created the skyscrapers we see and the great architecture all across the world. The human mind created the intricacy of the internet. In instant we can search up whatever we want. The human mind created the telephone. You can be in one part of the globe and I can be in the other, but in an instant we can be talking to one another, even video calling one another. The human mind created the car, planes, rocket ships, and all the wonders of technology we are able to experience. God created the heavens and the earths. He created the sun and moon, seraphim and cherubim, but there is nothing as uniquely made as the human mind. The Bible even goes as far as saying, As he thinketh in his heart, so is he. The devil also knows the power of the human mind, hence he is constantly striving to be enthroned in our minds. If he gets our minds, he has got control over our lives. Our minds are like the steering of a vehicle. Once the devil gets hold of it, he can drive us wherever he wishes. Our minds are usually inclined to spiritual control. Either your mind is governed by the devil, or you yield it to the Holy Spirit. You can't be neutral about this. No one ever runs his or her own mind on their own. Our minds often yield to spiritual control. However, yielding our minds to whosoever pleases us remains our personal choice. The devil is always after our hearts, and he will try every means possible to rule our minds. In Proverbs 4 verse 23, King Solomon said, "Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life." Solomon, in his wisdom, knew that the whole life of a man is a reflection of his heart. However, the devil lured Solomon into adultery. He used lust to win the mind of Solomon. As a result of Solomon's promiscuity, he became a victim of his own words when he failed to guard his heart. He was led into idol worship. The devil used the lust against him. 1 Kings 11 verse 4. For it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David, his father. Finally, Solomon ended his life in a shrine. Our minds must be guarded at all times, otherwise we permit evil to creep into it and ruin our lives. The words and actions of a man are the greatest measures the condition of his heart. Jesus said in Matthew 12 verse 34 that it is out of the abundance of the heart that the mouth speaks. The devil is good at arranging some circumstances which will make him gain access to our minds. Sometimes the circumstances may be pleasurable, while at other times it could be challenging. The devil used pleasure to win the heart of Solomon, but he surrounded Job with evil circumstances, all with the intention of having access to their minds. Job was a man that prospered, but he lost all he had in a single day with his 10 children. Imagine that. Losing your wealth is one thing, losing your health is one thing, and losing 10 children is one thing. All of these things are horrendous situations, but for all that to happen in one day, it was the devil who orchestrated the losses Job went through, so that his mind will be drifted from God. Unlike Solomon, Job guarded his heart, even when the devil sponsored his wife to make him curse God. Job's mind stayed on God. Finally, the devil failed over Job's life. Job 2 verse 10, But he said unto her, Thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What? Shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? In all this did not Job sin with his lips? You see, Your car didn't break down because the devil wants your car. You didn't lose your job because the devil needs a job. Neither did you lose anything valuable in your life because the devil has need of them. He only arranged those circumstances so that he can gain access to your mind. There are believers who believe that the devil cannot arrange circumstances in people's life. He can, and the book of Job proves it to us. The age-old truth is still true till this very hour. There is always something you cannot see, controlling what you can see. Nothing just happens. The devil is just trying to frustrate and stress you, and get you to point and blame God. He wants to take away your ability to serve the Lord. Romans 7:25 tells us that it is with the mind we serve him, and the devil will try to cause life events to go after your mind. The devil knows the significance of your mind, and he is just after it. Most times we cannot discern the circumstance created by the devil to win our hearts until we finally overcome him by taking our stand for the Lord. Job never knew what the devil was trying to do, but he just guarded his mind against satanic intrusion, and so we must do. Romans 12 verse 2 shows us how we must handle our minds. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. The devil may come to you with an evil thought or idea, but praise God, we have a system of cleansing our minds. We are to renew our minds. Our hearts are renewable by the blood of Jesus and God's Word. Reject every suggestion the devil gives to you and take your stand firmly in the Lord by guarding your mind.
Today's Hollywood pop culture machine will have you believe that Satanists wear robes and practice ritualistic blood sacrifices while worshiping Satan. And while there may be some truth to this, it is mostly propaganda meant to conceal the reality of what Satanism actually is. True Satanism is a mindset, and the Satan that is worshipped is within each and every one of us. It is most commonly known as our ego. The self is the true god of Satanism. The term Satanism is used to deceive religious people, to appear harmless to non-religious people, and also because it stems from the Hebrew word shaitan, which means adversary. Satan is the force of involution that opposes true spiritual evolution. It is the ego within us. Left to our own devices, the ego will try and convince us to think only of ourselves, which is exactly what Satanism is. And so, a de facto Satanist is a person who holds this mindset, but does not consider themselves to be a Satanist. Organized Satanism stands against this sort of enlightenment. They believe human psychology and the laws of nature should be kept occulted or hidden from the public and used to gain and retain power over the masses by keeping them ignorant as to how the mind and emotions work, while using this knowledge to manipulate the masses and ultimately enslave them. This is primarily done by cultivating the Satanist mindset among the masses, thereby turning the ignorant and unaware into a de facto Satanist. As we think, so we become. This mindset can be broken down into four main tenets of Satanism. The first and most important is selfishness, egotism, or what many know as narcissism. Self-preservation is the highest law. Live only for your own selfish desires and only care about you and yours. It's a dog-eat-dog world, and if you must step on others to get what you want, then so be it. This is the basis of satanic thinking. The second tenet of the Satanist mindset is moral relativism. This is the belief that there is no objective difference between right behavior and wrong behavior. It is the belief that nobody is ever objectively right or wrong, and that it's up to each individual person to decide for themselves what is right and what is wrong. The third tenet of Satanism is social Darwinism. This is the belief that it is natural and good for human society to be ruled by the most aggressive and dominant humans among us, and that it is by virtue of their genetics that these vicious humans deserve to be in positions of power and lead humanity as they so choose. The fourth tenet of Satanism is eugenics or dysgenics. This is the ideal conclusion of the Satanist mindset. Since man is God and he gets to decide what is right and what is wrong, and since the natural order is for the most dominant genetics to have power, then the elite class ruling over us has every right to decide who is allowed to live and procreate and who must die. This is how all of society is conditioned to think, and this is how the high-level Satanists are leading all of humanity into slavery. Most of humanity is operating under this de facto satanic mindset, which is why it is called the Great Work to change it. The Great Work is the work of awakening the masses to the true nature of the ego mind, encouraging each and every individual to find the courage to face their own inner shadow and to practice natural law. Natural law is the respect of others. Put simply, it is love. If the majority of humanity is practicing love, then humanity will know freedom. But if the majority of humanity is practicing Satanism, then humanity will be enslaved.
You know, and it's certainly the case that, like, I firmly believe that the world is not the way we perceive it. It's deeply strange. And I do believe that the hallucinogens reveal that. There's a narrative aspect to it. There's a religious aspect to it. There's a meaningful aspect to it that we don't understand. We can't understand it scientifically, or we haven't been able to. The scientific viewpoint excludes that to some degree. And I think the best evidence for that probably does come from hallucinogenic experience. Now, people have a biologically instantiated religious instinct. Now, it's possible that only speaks of our peculiar biological nature, that it doesn't reflect broader reality as such. But if you go deep enough into the psyche, it becomes increasingly difficult to separate what you discover from reality. Now, people can clearly have individual subjective religious experiences. Most scientific phenomena are objective. Many people have to experience the phenomena at the same time. You have these religious experiences that can be induced by hallucinogens, let's say. Each person has their own particular experience, but everyone has an experience that's similar. And we don't know what to do about that category of experience. And then, we think in stories and we see the world through a structure of value. I think that has been proven beyond a doubt by neuroscientists and psychologists. And the fact that we see the world through a prism of value seems to indicate that there's something about value that's real. And so that's partly why things are deeply mysterious. I mean, Rick Strassman, he terrified himself right out of the DMT research, as far as I could tell, because all his subjects came back and said, well, I went somewhere else and saw aliens. It's like, well, it was a dream. No, sorry, wasn't a dream. It was way more real than any dream. In fact, it was actually more real than life. Well, what do you do with that? I mean, it's beyond comprehension. Our culture grew out of the Bible. It's grounded in the Bible, for better or worse. And so if you want to know who you are and why you think the way you think, like you think you know the way you think. You think you think. You don't. Or very rarely. Like the thoughts are greater than you are in some sense. I mean, and it's very rare that you don't think that you think something that someone else hasn't thought. You know, I can't remember who said it. Might have been Alfred North Whitehead that, you know, everyone's the unconscious proponent of some philosopher. Everyone is the unconscious proponent of some philosopher. So, anyways, the deepest values are religious, and our religious document is the Bible, and the Bible is an absolute mystery. The deepest questions are religious questions, and the Bible is the best answer we have. And if you don't like that, well, fine, do better. Good luck.
Born in 1875, the young Crowley received a large inheritance from his deceased father, Edward Crowley, who passed away when Alistair was 11. Alistair used this wealth as the source of funding for his diabolical career. At 12 years old, he started killing and torturing animals. Both a sexual deviant and a heroin addict, Crowley was proud to be called the Great Beast of Revelation, whose number is 666 by his Christian mother. Alistair Crowley had, from an early age, identified with the enemies of God in the Bible stories that were read to him. In particular, he identified with the Antichrist predicted in the Book of Revelation. In 1898, he joined the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, a magical society. Most of Crowley's adult life was dedicated to indulging in everything he believed God would hate. Performing sex magic, taking heroin, opium, hashish, paid and cocaine, invoking spirits, and even once offering himself to the Russian authorities to help destroy Christianity. The volumes of books that he believed were dictated to him by a spirit from ancient Egypt called Awis. Among these, Crowley also wrote the Book of the Satanic Law, Do As Thou Wilt, which played a major role in the demoralization of society, which was aided by bands such as the Beatles, and possibly the majority of Hollywood. In essence, mankind was tricked into going against God's laws by telling everyone they can do what they want. What this abomination did was remove God's divine protection as the population became more immoral, replacing God's laws with man's legal positivism. When you play by the devil's rules, you win stupid prizes. If you notice something important, no one really gets away with anything. There is a reason the military has rules of engagement. Trial by combat only favors those who are lawful. God is not mocked. Where there is a cause, there is also an effect. What you sow, so shall you reap. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. It is unfortunate that the media has since promoted moral relativism and legalism. Society is no longer lawful, instead it's the ego's legalist playground, no different from Pharisees. The law of reversal. Crowley believed in rituals to be carried out backwards, through what he called the law of reversal. These rituals have been carried out by hundreds of artists around the world following his principles, embedding subliminal messages in their songs that affect the subconscious mind. These same techniques, along with the law of repetition, have been linked to various governmental programs such as Project Montauk and MKUltra. What they are essentially doing is implanting thought suggestions that will influence the victim's development of the mind, along with future choices. I would go as far as to say they are also implanting demonic entities, but I will leave that up to your imagination to connect the dot on. With that said, take a listen to the following segment.
Over and over again, not only in rock music, but people in Hollywood, all over, who are being called by Satan into his army. Okay, Oprah Winfrey said she was lonely and out of it until she came in contact with the universal hum. Okay, you see it over and over and over and over again. And I tell you right now, people in high places are being used by spirits to suck the world into the new age under Antichrist. And it's not just in rock music. That just happens to be what we're exposing today. In fact, your head is humming, and it won't go in case you don't know. The piper is calling you to join him. Dear lady, can you hear the wind blow? The lady that started off the tune. The lady that thought all that glitters was gold. Dear lady, can you hear the wind blow? And did you know your stairway lies on the whispering wind? Where's the whispering wind? Remember we talked about that? Remember that was the piper's path. And it's whispered that soon if we all call the tune, then the piper will lead us to reason. So he's basically telling this woman that she's going to hell. Your stairway lies on the whispering wind. Where does your stairway lie? So, if I said to somebody, hey, your stairway lies on the whispering wind, I'd basically be telling them that they're going to hell, because the whispering wind was the piper's path, as we've already sung. Now, before we go to the lyrics backwards and look at Stairway to Heaven backwards, which I think we should, I want to show you something in a bootleg by Led Zeppelin where they actually changed the words to this song. That was at Madison Square Garden, what you had seen right there. First of all, before we go to it backwards and before we show the bootleg, I want to open it up and I want to show you what it looks like on the inside of Stairway to Heaven. And what you see is a woman, which you probably can't see from back there because she's in black, she's not shining white light at all, and she's climbing a mountain. Does it look like it leads to heaven? Looks like it leads to outer darkness to me. Okay? In fact, the one who's leading her is a hermit of the tarot cards. The tarot cards are occultic cards to divine the future for occultists and people in the New Age movement and so forth. Crowley had his own deck of tarot cards that he designed. The hermit from the tarot cards represents occultic wisdom, occultic guidance. Who's the one that is guiding the occult, ultimately? Satan. Whose path is she really on? Satan's. In fact, just as Jimmy Page, you had seen right there, was invoking Satan, a little bit later in that same song, just a few minutes if we would have kept going, he becomes one with the hermit. His face blends in one with the hermit, who is a representation of Satan, ultimately. Because he was invoking Satan in that ritual. Now it's interesting that really the piper is Satan. In fact, when we listen to the song, and we're still not going to listen to it backwards yet, but when we listen to the song forward, I want you to catch something. Just a little part of it. Very interesting. What I want to ask you is, what kind of music do you hear? Grab that up a little. We hear an acoustic guitar. But what kind of instrument do we hear in the back of that acoustic? The pipe. The piper. The most powerful song of all time in rock and roll history, the biggest classic, has the piper that they identify as Satan, that is identified as Satan, I should say, leading the people that are in the kingdom of rock and roll. And guess what? I was a Led Zeppelin fanatic. And I had no idea because I was blinded. Because people are being blinded by this, you guys. But I've been set free by the Lord Jesus Christ, who breaks these chains of deception. And you can be set free too. In fact, we said earlier, the whispering path we saw was Satan's path, and then we see her being told, "Dear lady, can you hear the wind blow?" The pipe. And did you know your stairway lies in the whispering wind? Meaning you're going to hell. Now Led Zeppelin at the LA Forum, they tell their fans basically where they're going. Okay, listen very carefully. Dear who? Tells them their stairway lies on the whispering wind. He just told them they're all going to hell, and at the end of the concert, they don't know what's going on. So look how Robert Plant says goodbye to his fans. He just told them they're going to hell. They don't get it. They're cheering Led Zeppelin fanatically. And he tells them that it's been a joke, basically. Listen carefully.
LA's been very funny. Good night.
I've seen them do that over and over again in their music. Kind of laugh at the crowd. In fact, right here, let's look at Stairway from another angle. Let's look at it from the angle in which Satanists are looking at it and see what they're actually finding. Now, there's a few different ways to look at backwards masking, and there's different types of what people call backwards masking. I'm not talking really about backwards masking, I'm talking really about backwards messages. In fact, one way to do it, which wouldn't require demons or higher intelligences to intercede, would be just to take straight words, take 7 or 8 words in a song, and reverse them. And then when you played it backwards, you would hear those words. But when you heard it forwards, what would you hear? You'd hear something backwards. It wouldn't make sense. So when people talk about how backwards masking is done in the studio, yeah, that kind of backwards masking is done in the studio. No problem. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about when you hear music and lyrics forward, and then you hear those same lyrics backwards, and it's a message forward, and those same words are a message backwards. Okay? And we're not talking about 1 or 2 words. We're not talking about something like the cat and playing it backwards and trying to get something like tack backwards and something out of the. We're talking about sometimes over 15 words straight. We're talking on Stairway to Heaven right around 30 words. Okay? And we're not only talking about that, we're talking about a song that wasn't engineered to be heard backwards, but came right from the spirit world automatically. Okay? And then we're talking about, if you wanted to make lyrics backwards on a song, you're going to mess up that song forward pretty bad, right? Well, Stairway to Heaven is the most popular song in rock and roll. So this destroys any kind of argument that comes against it. And what destroys it more is the lyric forward often has everything to do with the lyric backwards. And to take it even further, you can hear a lot of these same things on live albums backwards. Because it's the demonic spirits using these human beings. Do you understand that? So let's listen to it. Remember, first of all, that they were invoking Satan, that they've got it from Satan, and listen to what you hear backwards. First we'll hear a little bit forward. Listen carefully. Raise your hand if you heard anything right away. Okay, that was without me even telling you anything. I've seen a lot of hands go up. Forward. Your stairway lies on the whispering wind. Forward it says, and your stairway lies on the whispering wind. Backwards it says, 'cause I live with Satan. Listen carefully. Raise your hands if you heard that. Quite clear, quite obvious. There's a lot more. Her stairway lies in the whispering wind, dear lady, just like the Led Zeppelin fans, because their power is Satan. They live with Satan. That's who empowers them, and they're following Led Zeppelin. They're really following Satan. Because Led Zeppelin were just 4 puppets. Satan could have used any 4 and formed Led Zeppelin. It was Satan's music. Let's listen on. Backwards it says the piper's calling you to join him, or forward. Backwards it says the Lord turned me off. Raise your hands if you heard that. Forward it says, and it makes me wonder. Backwards it says there's no escaping it. Raise your hands if you heard that. Okay, it's quite obvious and it's quite clear. You'd have to turn your ears off to not hear it, okay? It's really obvious what's going on here. Now, there is an escape. It says there's no escaping it. There is an escape, and that's Jesus Christ. In fact, He's the only escape. He's the only escape. Jesus said, I'm the way, I'm the truth, I'm the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. He said, if you try to climb up some other way, you won't make it. He says, the same as a thief and a robber. He alone, He said, is the gate. And if you want life, it's in Him. And if you go some other route, according to the Scriptures, you're still following Satan. You can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You can't do it through Buddha. You can't do it through Muhammad. They're both still in their graves. Jesus has risen from the dead, and He's coming back again, and you better be ready. Let's listen on. Listen backwards again, and I'm not going to say anything, and just listen, and I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if you heard something before I even say anything. Raise your hands if you heard anything. I see hands all over the place. Okay? Now listen to this forward. Forward, you're talking about several words, like around 17 words or so.
Don't be alone now. It's just a sprinkling for the May Queen. Yes, there are 2 paths you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on.
You're actually talking about more than 17 there. Listen carefully. What forward is talking about the 2 paths you can take. Okay? Yes, there are 2 paths you can go by. Backwards, they lift up, the demons lift up, because this isn't Led Zeppelin, this is spiritism, and spirits working through Robert Plant. Backwards, they lift up the backwards path, the satanic path. It says backwards, here's to my sweet Satan, I want to live it backwards, like the Zepp, referring to Led Zeppelin. Robert Plant referred to Led Zeppelin as the Zepp over and over again in interviews, and that's how they've been referred to for years. So backwards it says, here's to my sweet Satan, I want to live it backwards, like the Zepp, whose power is Satan, he will give you 666. Listen carefully. Backwards it says, here's to my sweet Satan. Did you hear that? Listen carefully. It says, I want to live it backwards like the Zepp, whose power is Satan. Did you hear that? Then it says, he will give you 666. Not much into my albums anymore, so. He will give you 666. Big deal. The mark of the beast will come out. People will take it on their right hand or their forehead, and then all of a sudden they'll get grievous sores on their right hand, and they'll say, hey, what's going on? It's not working. There's some kind of reaction to this mark. And then before you know it, according to Revelation 14, everybody that takes the mark of the beast will be damned in fire and brimstone, it says, forever. And the smoke of their torment rises up forever and ever. Big deal. It's a big deal in this sense. The people that take the mark of the beast, the people that are rejecting Jesus right now, are not going to make it into God's kingdom. And we need to reach people and say, hey, the scriptures say, Jesus said, except you repent, you shall all likewise perish. We need to turn to him wholeheartedly. Where are you turning at this time? Who are you following? Not to follow Jesus is to follow Satan, according to the word of God. Jesus said, he that is not with me is against me. Where are you at? Led Zeppelin is obviously satanic.
Zeppelin's song, Stairway to Heaven, carries the reference of the May Queen, which is the name of a hideous poem written by Crowley and his Babylon's Working. Page had inscribed in the vinyl of their third Led Zeppelin album, Crowley's Satanic Law, do what thou wilt, so let it be. Page and Robert Plant claimed that some of Led Zeppelin's songs came through occultic, quote-unquote, automatic handwriting, including their popular song, Stairway to Heaven, which is actually the Stairway to Hell. It is not the first time people have channeled something similar. Hollywood celebrities have claimed to have allowed something to, quote, come into them to form alter egos. There are many examples of these celebrities channeling entities, exposed in the past documentaries of the Lucifer Decoded series. Please do check those parts out if you have not caught up to what is being exposed. Back to Led Zeppelin, however. Page and Robert Plant said, quote, we tried to take advantage of everything that was being offered to us, end quote. During their channeling of the music and lyrics to Stairway to Heaven, Led Zeppelin presented the concept of worshipping the male-female godhead of the Kabbalah, as taught to them by Aleister Crowley, that Lucifer is the god all over the world, irrespective of the name, and that he has a female consort in the form of light. Hence the lyrics, quote, there walks a lady we all know, who shines white light and wants to show, end quote. The god form that they want the fan to worship in the song is Pan the Piper, which is also the origin of Peter Pan, the Greek god of the forests, who again was presented by Aleister Crowley in no uncertain terms as Lucifer the Piper, the maker of music. The Beatles also featured Aleister Crowley in their album. The song Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds reveals Crowley's Babylon's workings. In the animated music video, Lucy was hinted to being inside the minds of men. A curious thing when you think about where our thoughts come from and how powerful they are in influencing the Matrix itself. The Beatles used the law of reversal and did backmasking on many of their albums. The cover of the Sgt. Pepper's album by the Beatles showed a background of, according to Ringo Starr, quote, people we like and admire, end quote. Among those was Aleister Crowley. Regarding Sgt. Pepper's cover, Paul McCartney said, quote, we were going to have photos on the wall of all our heroes, end quote. Crowley's Babylon workings continues on in many forms and locations, such as in Bohemian Grove and thousands of other undisclosed locations. Although Epstein Island was one of those locations, there are many more. However, it would be erroneous to only point at Crowley alone for the Babylon workings. Ignatius Loyola, Islam's Prophet Muhammad, and Crowley's successor, Jack Parson, Helena Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, follow the same trend. Loyola with the Black Madonna, and Muhammad with Gabriel. The Illuminati. Mariah conquering wind, the Jesuits, Babylonians, Olympians, or whatever they like to call themselves these days all practice the Babylon working. But the same can be said about 90% of the population, since this Illuminati goddess is worshipped in every religion. Yes, even in Christianity, with the Immaculate, a title that belongs to Lilith, but was also given to the Virgin Mary. Then we have Judaism with Shekinah and Lilith mentioned in the Babylonian Talmud and currently held as a hero to feminists. Hindus with Kali, the list goes on and on. Even Adolf Hitler with the swastika symbol was inspired from Tibet. They all have one thing in common. They wanted to bring about the New Age of Aquarius. This is the New Age movement. They are all breaking the 10 Commandments. There is a logical reason why Commandment 1 is important, and it can be understood without applying religion. The reason is simple, because as we are clearly seeing in this lawless world, idols mislead people into hell. Think about that next time you witness Miley Cyrus performing indecent acts in front of children while on stage. Never mind the horrors you see these days in drag shows, which are designed to groom children into lust. Lust, I remind you, is a deadly sin. They are stealing their innocence away, and people are allowing it to happen because they have lost any sense of what it is like to be lawful. Then they wonder why there is lawlessness. We were warned about these dark times in the Bible. It is frightening how accurate biblical scriptures have predicted these scenarios. But as the saying goes, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. What are they teaching your children? Think why Sodom and Gomorrah met their fate. I'm not the only one exposing this satanic plot. There are many others doing this work. Many of them named within the credits in the past chapters of this series. They are the Watchmen, blowing the trumpet. I highly recommend looking at their channels, since they cover much more in far greater details. I have not even touched the tip of the iceberg of this great conspiracy. The Lucifer Decoded series is merely a connection of dots brought into light by hundreds of researchers. Symbolisms and predictive programming reveals a lot on their own, which is why I did not feel the need to add any narrations in the past. The Luciferians' dark work speak for themselves. By their fruits, ye shall know them.
Right here's where the end gon' start at. Conflict, contact, combat. Fight a stand where the land is marked at. Settle the dispute about who the live is. 3-word answer, whoever survived this. Only one of us could ride forever, so you and I can't ride together. Can't live or can't die together. All we could do is collide together. So I'll skillfully apply the pressure. Won't stop until I'm forever one. A doorstep where death never come. Spread across time till my time never done. And I'm never done. Walk tall, why ever run? When they move, if I ever come. Bad man never fret the word. Tell them come, general, we are gonna start the march. Fire fun. I against die. Flesh in my flesh, your mind on my mind. Two of a kind, but won't survive. My image is reflecting the enemy's eye. And his image is reflecting mine at the same time. I against die. Flesh in my flesh, your mind on my mind. Two of a kind, but won't survive. Survive.
looking for the cure. God, money's not concerned about the sick among the pure. God, money, let's go dancing on the backs of the bruised. God, money's not one to choose. No, you can't take it. No, you can't take it. No, you can't take that away from me. No, you can't take it. No, you can't take it. No, you can't take that away from me. I'd like to hold, like I can soul. I'd rather die, give you control. I'd like to hold, like I can soul. I'd rather die, give you control. Bow down before the one you serve. You're going to get what you deserve. Bow down before the one you serve. You're going to get what you deserve. Bow down before the one you serve. You're going to get what you deserve. Bow down before the one you serve. You're going to get what you deserve. We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Say you don't know me, I recognize my face. Say you don't care who goes to that kind of place. Knee deep in the hoopla, sinking in your fight. Too many runaways, eating up the night. My pony plays the mama. Listen to the radio. Don't you remember? We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Someone always playing corporation games. Who cares? They're always changing corporation names. We just want to dance here. Someone stole the stage. They call us irresponsible. Write us off the page. My pony plays the mama. This
calls you, you answer quite slowly. Go with your lightest Look for the girl with the sun in her eyes, and she's gone.
But see, in 1946, the pair embarked on the Babylon Working, based on ideas that were pioneered by Aleister Crowley in his 1917 book, Moonchild. The Babylon Working was a series of high ceremonial magic rituals conducted by Parsons and Hubbard between January and March of 1946 in the Mojave Desert. Now, the objective of the rituals was to manifest an incarnation of the elemental spirit of the divine feminine archetype known as the Scarlet Woman or Babylon. Now, nearly immediately upon completion of the initial series of rituals, Parsons would meet Marjorie Carmen in his own home, and he instantaneously regarded her as the physical manifestation of Babylon. Now, Parsons, with Hubbard and Marjorie Cameron, whom Parsons married in 1946, they then move on to the next phase of the rituals and attempt to produce a child by means of sex magic. And even though no child was conceived, Parsons still regarded the rituals as a success. Now, during the entire course of the Babylon Working, Parsons had maintained constant correspondence with the aging Aleister Crowley, and in many regards, Parsons was being groomed to become Crowley's successor. Neither Parsons nor Hubbard were the same after the Babylon Working. She claimed that it changed these men. Hubbard developed a paralysis on the right side of his body due to the ritual, and after he recovered, he became almost overcome with this energy, and it seemed that he was accessing an intellect that wasn't really his own. Then this may have been the result of some kind of experiment they were working with these high magic practices.
in your arms, too late to beg
you or cancel it, though I know it must be killing time, unwillingly mine. Fate up against your will, through the thick and thin, he will wait until you give yourself to him.
Opposite to Crowley, Carl Gustav Jung worked to untangle his own shadow from the clutches of the Anima. In this, shadow work links to Lilith because the Anima is her equivalence, and it hides behind the shadow. The shadow is your traumas, fears, resentments, oppressed side, anger. These emotions, amongst others, can become demonic if not addressed, and it is here where the Anima has access to your subconscious. In this state of mind, the victim is a version of an antichrist, projecting their own inner demons onto others. Often developing extreme narcissism, they never truly stare at their inner mirror. Instead, they fall in love with the reflection of their outer mirror, not realizing that in the other side of the mirror lurks a demon in the shadows. There is a saying that sometimes the brightest lights casts the darkest shadows. As we often see in the New Age movement and their so-called quote-unquote light workers. Alice in Wonderland gives you a clue on what lurks behind the looking glass. The inverted world where the shadow hides behind the ego's mask. The dwelling place of the Anima where she sits enthroned within man's ego heart. There is a reason she is called the Queen of Hearts. The point of shadow work is to evict or exorcise this demon from your heart by healing and integrating your shadow. Without your shadow in her clutches, the Anima loses power over you. Forgive the past. Both anyone who has hurt you along with your own mistakes. Learn the lesson, not to do it again. Stop touching that hot stove. Remember this during shadow work. When learning life lessons during your revisits of the past, your biggest blade against that dragon, called the past, is forgiveness. To integrate your shadow is to take accountability for the wrongs you did. Own up to it. Accept it, forgive, and become whole. In this, shadow work goes hand in hand with what the Bible calls long-suffering. But don't be too hard on yourself or others. Forgive others as you would forgive thyself, or vice versa. Allow natural, divine law, the will of God, to guide you through your life lessons. Allow him to show you your wrongs. Ask and ye shall receive. Matthew 6:14-15, King James Version. For if ye forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if ye forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses.
For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. Ye cannot serve God and mammon.
Psychologists like Carl Gustav Jung and Jordan Peterson and philosophers such as Alan Watts and David Icke have aided the world by unveiling what dwells within the subconscious. It is the reason why many people are fighting the wrong battle. We fail to see the demons that are under our own skin. Our unresolved karma keeps us from getting where we need to be in life. Instead, we are all projecting our demons onto one another. If you wanted to know what the Antichrist beast is, it is us, the collective shadow. This was revealed to me during shadow work. Man is his own worst enemy, and we see evidence of this every single day. How we hurt one another. The only answers I arrived at was through psychology. which in a way is defense against a dark art, so to speak, since it untangles the effects done by MK Ultra while providing ways to psychologically combat spiritual warfare. Along with the Bible, which contains the divine law, I realized fighting the elites was distracting me from my own inner battle. I was failing to nurture the real light within. This became apparent to me as I watched Isaac Cappy's final stream before his death. Isaac spent the last remaining years exposing the Hollywood elites. In the end, his own inner demons got the best of him. He admitted this in his final stream, in which he gave a final warning. But before moving to that clip, I would like to conclude that unless humanity finds a way to heal that shadow, we will continue on projecting our demons onto others. That path leads to destruction and enslavement. We all have a choice, here and now, between fear and love. With that said, be careful what thoughts you choose to entertain. They may manifest themselves. During my research, I found that the dots connected to quantum mechanics and the double-slit experiment. Perhaps the same is tied to our thoughts, as revealed in the experiment conducted by Dr. Masaru Emoto. If the human body is by a large part water, imagine what thoughts can do to our own bodies. Imagine the reasons the elites implant predictive programmings in their medias. What are they trying to manifest using the population's subconscious? What was the true purpose of Project Montauk and MK Ultra? Why aren't enough people asking these questions? Examples of predictive programming such as The Simpsons and the tragedy of 9/11 reveals events before they even happened. Not to mention the Illuminati card game, which has an eerie 100% prediction rate. Those cards were published in 1995. Yet somehow they reveal the future of the elite's plans, along with countless symbols shown on mainstream media. Who is planning all these events, or what? Know this truth, however, that you are not your thoughts. One thing is clear, symbols are the elite's downfall. If people become aware of them, we have to stop reacting to what the elites throw at us. They want us to react. They want us fighting each other. Both the left and right need to realize that they are both being played like chess pieces on a chessboard. But at the very least, people have begun to wake up to the fact that the Unity Party, both Republicans and Democrats, serve the same master Pharisees at the Federal Reserve Bank, the World Economic Forums, the Jesuits, and a certain group out there that calls you labels. If you dare point out the crimes of some of its members, it is all brown shirt tactics, and people need to wise up, or repeat history. To understand more on what was exposed here, revisit the past parts of this series, as they cover other topics and details. In part 9, I hope to cover the importance of Carl Jung's psychology and how shadow work leads to repentance and atonement, while also reminding folks to look into natural and divine law. Your divine sovereignty cannot be taken away by another man. We are not slaves, we are all children of the Most High, who gave us unalienable rights to be free from Egypt. This is Zerocool at Exposing Conspiracy, hopefully signing off on documentaries. I wish you all Godspeed.
So, whose judgment do I fear? Well, loyalty is to God. God, and also the light within. The light within, okay? God is not some external concept, right, that you pray to as an idol. God lives within all of us. God lives within all of us, okay? God lives within all of us, and you have to, well, here's the thing. God doesn't live within all of us. It doesn't live within you if you are ignoring that, and if you are, caught up in dumb shit. Right? can't tell what's real right now. I would say, guys, you need to find the fucking light. Yeah? Find the light within, guys. Find the light within. Find the light within. Very important. Very important. And stay in the light. How do you find the light? It's an awareness, and I think the most important is coming from your heart. Yeah? Coming from your heart and just getting into the present. Humble yourselves. Yes, fucking humble yourselves. Stay humble. People say full armor of God, which I don't know that armor is I don't know armor is what you need, because armor just keeps stuff out, right? But you need to let things in. The way, the truth, and the life. That's right. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. The way. The way is the most important part of that. The way. How do you stay? The way is the moment and becoming attuned to it. I'm worrying you? Well, don't be worried. Just be like, wow, Isaac was a really good dude until he gave into darkness. And he didn't hold the light. And something happened in the blink of an eye, really. And he fucked up. If not money. Yeah, it's money related. So stupid. So flippant. Darkness. The darkness within, guys. The darkness is within. Darkness exists within, just as light exists within, okay? We all have the capacity for darkness and for light. Yeah. So, you must choose the light. Choose the light. And it's every moment is a choice. Every moment is a choice to go to the dark or go to the light, right? And what you choose. Choose to be in the light. I didn't take money. I gambled on something stupid, flippantly, just because I was like, oh, look at that. Without thinking. Without thinking, guys. Without fucking thinking. Without thinking. If you are a smart person, you think about the outcome of your choices, right? That's what smart people do. And even though the signs were in front of me, I didn't listen to them. And I let the darkness take over me. There are no shortcuts to enlightenment. Enlightenment is of the moment. No shit. That's so true, 812. That's so true. There are no shortcuts to enlightenment. It takes years. Years and years and years and years of conscious praying and meditation and contemplation. Which I was not doing. I wasn't doing. I was not doing it. One was really bad. Focus on love. That's right, guys. Focus on love. Energy flows where focus goes. Energy flows where focus goes. All right? Right. Energy goes where focus. So focus on love. Focus on love. Loving each other. Loving yourself and holding the light within. Something about a karaoke bar? No. Nothing about a karaoke bar. Yeah. The devil will put his hooks in on all of us whenever and wherever he can. That's true, guys. The devil will. Yeah, the devil will. But the devil, okay, the devil can only tempt you into something. You have the choice. If you stay in the light, then it's all right. How is everybody? How am I? Well, I'm not good. Well, this will likely be my last broadcast. And it's going to be painful for all of you. It's going to be very painful. And I'm sorry. Telling you ahead of time. Just to let you know. I've spent the last 3 years enmeshed in finding the darkness in the world and uncovering the darkness in the world, but not enough time uncovering the darkness within me. And the dog said too, I made a really stupid, cynical, petty, stupid decision this week. And I did it in the blink of an eye. And with as much time as I've spent trying to mitigate risk, and there were a lot of people that I kept out of my life, that I wanted in my life, but I didn't want to bring harm to them because of all the Illuminati shit. And this struggle against darkness, consumed me. It consumed me. Yeah, I'm a bad guy. I'm a bad guy. I let the darkness consume me. And I didn't spend enough time nurturing the light and love within me.
The word principles, let's define it. Principle comes from the Latin noun principia. Principia means first, foremost, leading, chief, or most necessary. It is that which matters most. It is the first things that must be understood before anything else can be understood. Principles have to come first. I'm attempting to take this information out of hiding. It's been hidden. The hiding of it is destroying the fabric of our society and putting us into bondage. It needs to come out and be non-hidden. It needs to be unveiled and shared widely and freely with anybody who's capable of accepting it and comprehending it now. And this is the problem. Our society does not put principles first. It puts trivialities first, and we're no longer a society that even cares about principles or first things. So first things first. First things or principles have to come first. These are the 7 general principles of natural law. Many people who have studied some variants of occultism may recognize these as what are known as the Hermetic principles. There is a moral obligation to bring this information to the public now. The principle of mentalism states that the all, everything in creation, is actually a manifestation of mind. The all is mind. Okay, what this means is everything that happens has to be a result of a mental state which preceded it. Everything. For anything to exist, thoughts had to form first, and then they formed the physical reality after. The universe itself is a mental construct of the Creator. Thoughts lead to the manifestation of things and events. Thoughts create conditions. Thoughts create things and conditions. They cannot just magically manifest themselves. Thought comes first. Thoughts create our state of existence and the quality of our experience here on earth, ultimately. Therefore, we should be responsible for everything that we create by being responsible for that which we think. Because the thought processes are what are driving the behaviors. People behave the way they do because they have certain belief systems embedded in the mind and running like a program. Their thoughts and their emotions are driving their actions. So the behavior is not magically suddenly going to just change. The thoughts and emotions have to change because they're the driving force behind the behavior. That's when reality will change. See, people don't want to hear that, once again. They don't want to hear, if you want to change reality, you, yourself, have to change the way you think. Because the way you think is not conducive to the requirements for getting what you say you want. They're doing the exact opposite of that in many cases. So that's the principle of mentalism. The principle of correspondence states that that which is above is similar or like to that which is below. So what this means is that which is below, and that which is below is like to that which is above. It's a mirror, okay? The above is like the below is like the above, all right? The above, in this case, is the macrocosm, okay? The laws of the very large things, okay? The laws that govern the creation which we consider is seemingly outside of ourselves. So the macrocosm, or the very large, the totality of everything, and the microcosm, which is the very small, or the individuated units that comprise the whole in their aggregate, okay? They are reflections of each other. They cannot be separated from each other. As one goes, the other goes. The universe is actually a holographic system. It's a hologram is an image, okay? You pass a laser through it, and it then projects a 3D image, okay? It's like a flat image, and it projects a three-dimensional image. But the aspect, why they call it a holo, like holistic, hologram, holistic image, is if you break a hologram into multiple components by cutting it. So if I take a hologram and I cut it in 4 pieces, you don't have a quarter of the image on one part of the hologram and a quarter on the other and a quarter on the third and a quarter on the fourth. You have 4 whole images that only lose their resolution by a quarter. So everything is contained in all the smaller parts, okay? That's like the reality that we're living in. Our universe is a holographic one. So the universe is inside the individual. And the entire universe is like an individual. They're reflections of each other. The other part of the principle of correspondence is that our reality is also fractal in nature. Now, if you studied fractals, these are self-similar mathematical generated patterns, okay? We see this through things like Fibonacci sequence in mathematics, and this is repeated endlessly throughout nature. You look at the structure of the atom, and it's similar to the structure of the solar system, which is similar to the structure of the galaxy. They work the same way. They look the same. You pull back enough, you'll keep seeing the same pattern repeat. So, the universe is both holographic, meaning that the whole is contained in the parts, and vice versa, and it is fractal or self-similar across all scales of its existence. That's the principle of correspondence. The principle of vibration simply states that there is no such thing as rest, as dead or non-motion, okay? Death, in that sense, is an illusion because true death would be the cessation of all motion and energy. There is no such thing. It doesn't exist. You cannot go anywhere in creation where something is at complete rest. Everything moves, everything vibrates, and at the most fundamental level, the universe and every single thing which comprises it is ultimately pure vibratory energy that is manifesting itself in different ways, different frequencies, different vibratory forms. The universe has no true solidity as such, as we imagine solidity at the macrocosmic level. Matter is merely energy in a state of vibration. So nothing is truly solid. You know, it's again, like we say, we are spirit having a human experience. The whole universe is spiritual, having a experience in solidity. All right, that's how you have to look at the principle of vibration. The principle of polarity states that everything has a dual nature to it. There are polarities in everything that exists. Okay, everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. However, opposites, they are identical in nature, but they're different in degree. So let me give you an example of what that means. Are hot and cold really opposites? Or can we simply look at them as the presence of heat energy or the absence of heat energy? Meaning that they're the same thing, energy. And whether it's concentrated in a specific area, which would make it hot, or whether it's absent from a specific area, which would make it cold. Okay? That's what hot and cold are at the fundamental level. At our level of perception, they're opposites, but at the fundamental level, they're the same thing, energy or lack thereof. Extremes can meet and blend and, play with each other, like as depicted in the yin-yang symbol, masculine and feminine. They need to be blended. And at some level of reality, everything that is seemingly contradictory may be reconciled. Now again, I stress the term at some level. At the unified field level, everything is consciousness, pure consciousness. However, at this level, there are differences in consciousness. At this level, there are things that are taking place that we need to understand. At this level, there are things that we need to set right and rectify because it does matter. It does matter. So, again, be careful with some of the new age-isms that get put out there. Yes, can all paradoxes be reconciled? At some level. In this realm, we need to have our feet on the ground in the physical domain. Let's look at the principle of rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. Okay, so everything has a rhythm to it or a swing to it. There's tendencies that exist in energy. The pendulum swing manifests in everything that we undergo, everything that we perceive. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. It's just an opposite. It's perceived as an opposite. Rhythm will compensate. Now, how this should be understood when we are talking about natural law is many people will say, well, that's just the way the tendency is moving us. It's just the way the tide is taking us, right? But that's not really accurate. Okay? We can't look at these things as that the rhythms are set in stone and it has to be this way now, right? One of the things that a lot of the Hermetic tradition taught regarding these laws, these principles, were they can be overcome by higher levels of consciousness. Okay? This one was one of them. Rhythm is a principle that is a tendency for something to swing a certain way. Let's look at it as you have a boat. You want to row the boat out to sea, right? You have to get past the tide. You have to get past the breakers and the waves. And if that tide's really strong at high tide, it's going to be very much more difficult. You're going to have to expend more energy to get it out to sea. If, however, you were taking it when the current's moving out to sea, okay, there's a flow that's moving outward deeper into the ocean, and you start rowing that boat then, you're going to be able to do it much more easily. Okay, so if there's winds pushing along a plane, it's going to have to expend less energy. It's going to get there more quickly. Okay, because it's adding to the energy. If, however, you're flying against the wind, you got to expend a lot more energy. It's just a tendency. You can still get to where you want to go. You may just have to exert more effort. So that's the principle of rhythm. This is the principle here in natural law that most fits in with how I'm using the term natural law today, cause and effect. Many people, again, in the New Age community, don't want to believe that there's causes and effects, and that effects are driven by causes that, come first and then manifest conditions. So the principle of cause and effect simply states that every cause has its effect and every effect has its cause. Every single thing that occurs happens according to law. All right? Chance is a name for law, a law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. So again, is there free will? Yes, there is free will. But is there free will to ignore law without consequence? No, there is not. That's the limit of free will. Free will is operating within boundary conditions that I'm referring to as natural law. It's a series of laws, actually, okay? Free will operates within these parameters or boundary conditions that cannot be exceeded or gone beyond without consequence. Oh yeah, you can break natural law. Yes, you can break it, but you cannot break it without consequence. You cannot break it without consequence, negative consequence. And that's why this body of knowledge has in the past been referred to as consequentialism. It is the knowledge of how consequences are generated by our free will decision-making processes within the boundaries of natural law. Will the effect happen immediately? No, it will not happen immediately. There is a time lag. You set the cause into motion. The universe is going to intelligently bring to you, through a rearrangement of all the dynamics that it needs to rearrange, the effect of what you've generated by setting that cause into motion. And there is a time gap between the cause going into place and the effect coming around and hitting you. This is why the pattern recognition of cause and effect is more difficult, because it is separated by a time lag, by what we perceive as linear time. Now, if you did a wrong to somebody and immediately you were stung by a wasp, every single time you did a wrong to somebody, it showed up and bit you immediately within 2 seconds of you hurting somebody, stealing from somebody, lying to somebody, etc. Would you start to connect the stinging to the wrong that you did? I think most people would see the pattern. They would recognize the pattern. But since that doesn't happen, and there's a time lag to experiencing something harmful to ourselves once we do something harmful to other people, it's very difficult for people to see the connection through the time lag. So this is ultimately going to come back and bite us, you know? And what we set into motion is going to actually topple over onto us if we don't change our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. The next thing that needs to be understood is the two planes. All right, there's the plane of effects, and then there's the plane of causes. No power to affect any change lies on the plane of effects, which is the physical manifested reality. Again, what already is, nothing can be done about. What already is, you cannot change. You cannot change the past. You can change what it is starting now and make sure that it gets changed in the future. But right now, what is the truth, and all you can do is accept that or reject it. You can't change the past. So the physical world that is manifested up to this point happened because of things that occurred in the past. The causes happened in the past. Nothing you can do about that right now. The plane of effects, or the physical world, is where manifested realities have already occurred, have already taken shape, have already formed, due to their underlying causal factors. The plane of effects constitutes that which has already occurred. As such, no power to effect change lies here, because that which has already occurred cannot unoccur. That which has occurred can't undo itself. It happened, it's already done. It has become that which is, or truth. Human consciousness seems to be trapped upon the plane of effects, meaning that humanity as a whole remains ignorant of the underlying causes which they themselves have set into motion and which lead to self-inflicted suffering in their lives. So if you're trapped at this level, what you're doing is you're looking at the symptoms, and you're stuck looking at the symptoms. So let's look at the plane of causality. This is the other plane. This is the mental realm, the mental world. Again, according to the law of mentalism, the first principle of natural law, everything that manifests must first manifest in mind before it can manifest physically. So again, if the plane of causality is the mental world that's generating the causes in mind, okay, everything is happening there first, and then it is trickling down to the physical domain. It is manifesting in the physical domain only after it has manifested in the mental world. The plane of causality is where causes are set into motion prior to those causes manifesting as formed realities in the plane of effects. The final principle of the 7 principles of natural law, at least the formalized ones, are gender. Gender exists in everything. Everything has its masculine and its feminine components or principles. We've already seen that when it comes to the human brain, consciousness, worldview, etc. Gender manifests on all planes of existence. Spiritual, mental, physical, everything. Very simple concept. What I want to briefly talk about is mental gender. Mental gender is the state of coexistence between the masculine and feminine aspects of the mind. Our left brain hemisphere largely facilitates the masculine aspects of the mind, or the intellect, logic, analytical thought, linear thought processes, while the right brain hemisphere largely facilitates the feminine aspect, or intuition, meaning creativity, compassion, and holistic thought processes. This next section is what I call the lost principle. This is the 8th principle of natural law, which binds all of the other principles together. It is what I would call the encapsulating principle. Okay? It's the container inside which all the other principles fit very nicely and neatly. You hear very few other researchers, even people who are studying this from the occult perspective, who are studying this from the consequentialism perspective, you very hear them incorporate the 8th and all-encompassing principle. This pattern is called something. Does anybody know what this pattern is called? The seed of life. Now, what happens from a seed? It grows. It generates something. It creates something. A seed has an outer casing, an outer shell, that if you're going to get to the inner core of it that contains all of the creative, genetic, generative material, okay, that shell has to be there and intact. You break the shell of the seed, the creative essence of the seed is going to be gone. Now, what is that principle? Here's what that principle is. It's the 8th, or what I call the lost principle. And it's the thing that has to be present in order for any change to manifest itself. And it is not what most people think of it as. Even when I tell you what this is, I guarantee you there will be an inaccurate connotative meaning for what people think this means. Okay? Here's what the 8th principle is. It is known as the generative principle, or the principle which governs creation, which actually is the causal factor that goes into effect and generates the result that we say that we want. But what's the real term for it? Who can guess what the actual term, what the generative principle of creation actually is? The generative principle is care. Now, this is different than compassion. People say, why don't you use the word compassion? Because that's not what I'm talking about. It is a different concept than compassion, or even what I would describe as love. This means, what are you giving attention and helping to grow? What are you focusing upon? Because what focus you're focusing upon, that's what's ultimately getting generated, getting created, and growing. And this doesn't mean be ignorant of what's going on in the world and don't look at anything that's negative because you're going to feed that and give power to it. That's not what it means. That means, you know what you're feeding? In that instance, if you want to do that, you're feeding ignorance. And that's what's going to grow. It's the exact opposite that the New Agers want you to believe that it is. By ignoring the negative, you are ensuring that more of it occurs. You are fueling it by ignorance, ensuring that it grows and takes over. What care has to be looked at here as is, this is what you're giving your energy to. This is what you're focused upon. This is what you actually care enough about to do, to spend your time on, to put your attention on, to manifest in the world. That's what I'm talking about as care. That's what generates our experience in the aggregate. Most people don't care about what's really happening. Therefore, it is an impossibility for us in the aggregate to change the direction of energy, to change the direction of consciousness, and ultimately to get what we say we want. That's how the real law of attraction works. Here's how it actually operates. The lost principle is the dynamic of care. What we care about on a day-to-day basis acts as the driving force of our thoughts and actions. What did I say we need to develop? The heart, mind, guts, right? Heart, mind, guts, in that order. Care comes first. You got to care enough to know, to develop the knowledge, okay? Then you got to act on it and put it into practice. Apply it. So that's the order. Heart, mind, guts. Care, knowledge, action. Those are the steps. And all three of those have to be in place. All three. That's what unity consciousness is. It's unifying thoughts, emotions, and actions. The three aspects of consciousness, such that there is no contradiction between them. Our thoughts, what we say, what we think, how we feel, and how we act are one and the same. There's no contradiction. That's unity consciousness. Care is the driver of our thoughts and actions. It ultimately can be seen as the generator of the quality of our shared experience here on the earth. Care is what generates the whole thing. Hence, it has been called the generative principle. Liken the heart to a pump in the body. Well, what does a pump do? It's a generator. It provides energy. It moves the life force through the blood in the body. In every ancient tradition, they talked about the life force being in the blood. The heart is what pumps that through the whole physiology and enables us to continue to sustain life. Okay? The heart is the generator, it's the pump. It's the center of the being. As important as the brain is, which we just talked about the importance of it, the heart is ultimately what's generating the experience. Because what we care about determines what we think about on a daily basis most of the time, and therefore how we behave. Anybody familiar with the compasses and square symbol of Freemasonry? With the G in the middle? Well, that's what the G stands for at the highest level. You'll talk about many porch masons. These are the exoteric masons that are given the teachings of the profane and they think they're in the know, okay? They're given the information, well, this only means geometry, it only means God, etc., okay? One of the things they'll tell you it means at a slightly higher level is that it means gnosis, knowledge. At a higher level, at illuminated levels of Freemasonry, which are above 32nd degree, they will give you what the real meaning of the G inside the compasses and square is. And it is the generative principle. It means Genesis, creation. And yeah, you can tie that right back to God. I'm not saying those things are different. And the forms that get created in the physical manifested world are geometric forms. So it is geometry as well. It's all these things. But at the highest level, it's the generative principle. That's what that G really stands for in esoteric Freemasonry. It's called the generative principle because that means to create. It comes from, the word generative comes from Latin. The verb generare, as we've already talked about, means to create. The generative principle is what we create through. And it's lost because people don't care. They don't have care. Hence, it's the lost principle. Okay? Here's how it works, folks. What we care enough to put our will behind. So again, heart, mind, guts. Guts is the will, the action, the masculine principle. That's what gets things done ultimately in the physical domain. What we care enough to put our will behind. And that's driven by the care. That's the generator or the pump that drives the will. What we care enough to put our will behind is ultimately what gets created or manifested in our world. The world is the way that it is because most people do not care enough, even if they say, they pay lip service, okay, and say that they want things to be different. They don't care enough to actually change it through their actions. What it comes down to is preventing action. Preventing action. That's what the New Age community is designed to do. They want people inactive because The dark occultists know that the thing that is ultimately generating our reality is behavior. Action is what's generating the reality. That gets generated through what we care about, because our cares and our desires drive our actions. So most people will say they want things to change, but then when you say, what are you doing to make that change happen? Not a word. Silence comes back on the other end. They don't care enough to change it through their actions. That's what the generative or lost principle is about. And until that principle is regained and people get out of their laziness and most of all get out of their cowardice. Again, in that New Age lecture, I'm talking about what it ultimately comes down to in the New Age movement. And I'll look at any New Ager in the eyes. They're cowards. Cowards. Ultimately, they know the evil that we're up against, and they intend to do not a damn thing about it. That's what it really comes down to. And anybody telling you it's different than that is lying to you. They're cowards. Period. And I'll say it right to any of their faces. Anything I say up here, anybody that believes in that nonsense, come and bring them to me. I'll tell them right to their face. Straight and open, just like I said it here. Because I don't care. So, I'm telling you, this religion has to go. It's got to go. If people are going to make real change happen, the idea that it can't be done, that it can be done without taking actual real world action has to be purged from human consciousness. Reality does not work like that. Period. The end. And I can't make you accept that. I recognize I can't make anybody in this room accept that. All I can do is put it out there for your consideration, and if you have some common sense and really think about it, you'll understand what I'm saying here is absolutely the way it is. Many people want to deceive you through these religious notions, which is all about getting people to stand down and accept their chains. That's what that religion's in place for.
So we got to get real with the deal here. What's the real deal? How does this work? How does the awakening really work? It comes down to some nitty-gritty things. That makes sense, right? So we can beat around the bush forever and take the 10 steps to success and the 7 principles of this, that, and Timbuktu. We can do all that, and we've been doing it. We're circling around the void. We're avoiding it. Avoidance, avoid dance. We dance around the void, the thing that we are afraid of, right? So here's the deal. And the real deal about real awakening is you got to face your shit. You got to deal with your demons and face your shit. There's no other way around it. All right? So I use it as an example to snap people out of stuff a lot. I use Solomon, King Solomon, wise King Solomon. Wise is wizard. Wizard. He conjured demons. Okay? What we call demons. Jinn, entities. And so we got to get real with this. Look it up. The lesser key of Solomon, the greater key of Solomon. You know, he's doing the star, you know, the circle. The magic ritual, conjuring entities. Now here's the thing. Why does he do that? They helped him build the temple, by the way. These disembodied spirits, the jinn. What are they? What they are is you. Your demons are you in denial. The unacknowledged, subconscious, unexpressed, repressed, suppressed aspects of ourselves, of yourself. That's what the demons are. So on the real spiritual path, love and light is not going to work. In fact, it works the opposite. If you just keep invoking light, it's going to put more and more pressure on these demonic aspects. That's why you'll see teachers and people who do not deal with their own stuff, their own aspects, their shadow side, if you don't deal with it, and I'm coming on strong here a little bit today, okay? It manifests in denial, co-opts, takes you over, possesses you. So that teaching that was for good turns bad, co-opted, in denial. the original Illuminati, get co-opted into some horrible bankster fucking mind control garbage on the planet. Because the original Illuminati, some of them, I'm speaking truth now, didn't deal with their own stuff completely and got seduced into power over other souls. For example, the most powerful thing you can do to heal the earth is to heal your own shadow. You want to help the earth? You want to save all the cats? You want to save the rainforest? You want to save the planet? Heal your fucking shadow. I don't understand why so much trouble follows in the path of true masters. Because they're stirring the fucking pot to stir up your shadow. Now, you don't want to overwhelm yourself. You don't want to go too fast, right? You want to bite-sized chunks and ask for guidance from real God source, your own higher self. How much can I deal with? You got to deal with your fucking shadow. If you don't deal with your fucking shadow, you're doomed to repeat this reincarnational cycle forever and ever ad nauseum. It's pretty much what we got right now. Ad nauseum, same shit, different day. Same shit, different incarnation. Same shit, different civilization. Atlantis, Egypt, Rome, Greece, Rome, America, collapsing because we're not dealing with our shit. The ETs can't save you, the angels can't save you. So if we don't do it, it don't fucking happen. If we don't face our shadow side, it don't fucking happen. You won't save the planet. You'll be like the cat lady with 75 cats. I try to save everyone. And it creates this horrible stench, dysfunctional place. That's what we're doing. All the false religions, including New Age garbage, that is not wanting to address the dark stuff inside each individual, clean up your own backyard. Toxic waste dump is what we are when we are not dealing with our stuff inside us. We literally have a trail of astral shit, astral dark energy coming out our backside. Some honesty. Here's some truth. Alright? It's the reality of it. The reality is that. So, when your horrible feelings of sadness, grief, hopelessness, fear of survival, terror, rage, those are the ones that are the most in need of feeling and healing. Allowing to surface, allowing to transmute, to alchemize. You want to save the planet? Deal with your fucking shadow. It's the reality of it. Truth of it. Now, please don't edit this video and just take snippets and make me look like an idiot. It's so hard for us to have anyone speak like this, you know? And maybe taken seriously and sort of on CNN right now. Obviously, it's not ready for that. But this is where we're headed. The avant-garde, the front lines, is dealing with your fucking shadow. And then you'll notice, after you heal an aspect of your shadow, life got easier. That stomach problem went away. I don't have that neck thing anymore. Wow, money's coming easier. I found a partner I like. You got to make room by cleaning up the dark, in the dark, denied shit, and then the light automatically flows in, just like water flows in automatically when you dig a hole at the beach. Don't worry about that. God source, the Tao, the energy flows right in. Not a problem. The problem is you, me. The problem is us, that we're not willing to deal with our shit. All the knowledge will never get you there. It's the booby fucking price. Thinking about it, understanding it doesn't work. You can't think your way out of this one. You can feel your way, sense your way through it. You can't think your way out of this one. You can't theorize your way out of this one. But you can sense your way through it into healing. I'm not even fucking sure I can publish this video, you know? Because we're not ready to be this real as spiritual teachers. Yeah. It's expressing a little anger. Wonder who's still with me. I pray God's blessings, real God's blessings. Help us all that we can express this stuff, heal it, let it up, clean our pipes, you know, in a safe way, and we don't act it out on each other. We don't actually kill each other. World War III, you know, horrible flip-out episodes because they snap If we start dealing with this stuff, you can do your part in your home, in your backyard, in your temple, which is your body. If you clean that up, not only will you have more fun, you'll be helping the planet. I love you. I love what the planet does. I love the animals. I've been feeling the heart for the planet so much lately. You know, I've just been feeling we've turned a corner, but we have this cleanup to do. You know, it's sort of like we got the funding, but we got to do the cleanup. May those with ears hear, and those with hearts feel, that what I just said is in fact real.
God's grace. I have not heard that. At any rate, it seems I've lost my religion.
I put no stock in religion. By the word religion, I've seen the lunacy of fanatics of every denomination be called the will of God. I've seen too much religion in the eyes of too many murderers. Holiness is in right action and courage on behalf of those who cannot defend themselves. And goodness. What God desires is here and here. And what you decide to do every day, you will be a good man. Or not.
None of us know our end, really, or what hand will guide us there. A king may move a man. A father may claim a son. That man can also move himself. And only then does that man truly begin his own game. Remember that howsoever you are played, or by whom, your soul is in your keeping alone. Even though those who presume to play you be kings or men of power, when you stand before God, you cannot say, "But I was told by others to do thus," or that virtue was not convenient at the time. This will not suffice. Remember that.
What is the first rule of any game, Mr. Green?
The only way to get smarter is by playing a smarter opponent.
What's rule 2 of any game?
The more sophisticated the game, the more sophisticated the opponent.
Harmless the saying, but where does it stop, Mr. Green? Where does this game stop?
It stops when you start to give me answers. Don't let them play head games with you, Jake.
Is it me that's playing head games with you, Mr. Green? You've heard that voice for so long, you believe it to be you. You believe it to be your best friend. Where's the best place an opponent should hide?
The very last place you would ever look.
Do you know who Sam Gold is, Mr. Green? You should. Because he knows who you are.
The Gold. Sam Gold. Mr. Clandestine. Mr. Ambiguous. Mr. Mystery.
It's all up here. Pretending to be you.
No one sees gold, but gold sees everything.
You're in a game, Jake. You're in the game. Everyone's in his game, and nobody knows it. And all of this is his world. He owns it. He controls it.
I've had enough of this shit. It's starting to do my head. Tell me you've had enough.
Tells you what to do.
Look, that's enough.
And when to do it.
Tell him. I said that's enough, Abby! Eventually, when the opponent is challenged or questioned, it means the victim's investment and thus his intelligence is questioned. No one can accept that. Not even to themselves.
He's behind all the pain there ever was. Behind every crime ever committed.
How can I be behind all the pain, all the crime? I don't even exist.
And right now, he's telling you that he doesn't even exist.
No one lives, and this piece of skull. No one but your two friends.
We just put you to war with the only enemy that ever existed. And you think he's your best friend.
They will protect their best friend. With everything they've got.
You're protecting him, Mr. Green. But with what? Where's the best place an opponent should hide? In the very last place you'd ever look. He's hiding behind your pain, Jake.
There's never nothing going on. If you're looking with a clear mind. Start with the past, Dan. Understand something. There's nothing you can do to change it. The past is completely out of your control. You're up in the rings and you think to yourself, the last time I didn't do so good. The past now has all your attention and concentration. So, throw it out. The same with the future. Gee, I really hope I ace my dismount. I really hope Joy and I get together. The future now has your concentration. You see? So throw it out. Take out the trash, Dan. The trash is anything that is keeping you from the only thing that matters. This moment. Here and now. And when you truly are in the here and now, you'll be amazed at what you can do and how well you can do it.
You're protecting him with your pain. Embrace the pain. You will win this game.
If you change the rules on what controls you,
you will change the rules on what you can control. How radical are you prepared to be, Mr. Green?
Attention all you rule breakers, you misfits and troublemakers, all you free spirits and pioneers, all you visionaries and nonconformists. Everything the establishment has told you is wrong with you is actually what's right with you. You see things others don't. You are hardwired to change the world. Unlike 9 out of 10 people, your mind is irrepressible, and this threatens authority. You were born to be a revolutionary. You can't stand rules because in your heart you know there's a better way. You have strengths dangerous to the establishment, and it wants them eliminated. So your whole life you've been told your strengths were weaknesses. Now I'm telling you otherwise. Your impulsivity is a gift. Impulses are your key to the miraculous. Your distractibility is an artifact of your inspired creativity. Your mood swings reflect the natural pulse of life. They give you unstoppable energy when you're high, and deep soulful insight when you're low. Been diagnosed with a disorder? That's society's latest way to deny its own illness by pointing the finger at you. Your addictive personality is just a symptom of your vast, underused capacity for heroic creative expression and spiritual connection. Your utter lack of repression, your wide-eyed idealism, your unmitigated open mind. Didn't anyone ever tell you? These are the traits shared by the greatest pioneers and visionaries, innovators, revolutionaries, procrastinators, and drama queens, activists on the social scene, space cadets, and mavericks, philosophers, and derelicts, business suits flying fighter jets, football stars and sex addicts, celebrities with ADD, alcoholics who seek novelty, first responders, prophets and saints, mystics, and change agents. We are all the same, you know, 'cause we're all affected by the way. We are all the same, you know, 'cause we're all attracted to the flame. You know in your heart there's a natural order, something more sovereign than any man-made rules or laws could ever express. And this natural order is called the way. The way is the eternal substrate of the cosmos. It guides the very current of time and space. The way is known by some as the will of God, divine providence, the Holy Spirit, the implicate order, the Tao, reverse entropy, life force. But for now, we'll simply call it the way. The way is reflected in you as the source of your inspiration, the source of your passions, your wisdom, your enthusiasm, your intuition, your spiritual fire, love. The way takes the chaos out of the universe and breathes life into it, giving it divine order. The way, when expressed by the mind, is genius. When perceived through the eyes, is beauty. When felt through the senses, is grace. When allowed into the heart, is love. Most people cannot sense the way directly, but then there are the wayseers, the keepers of the flame. Wayseers have an unexplainable knack for just knowing the way. They sense it in their very being. They can't tell you why or how they arrived at the right answer. They just know it in their core. They can't show their work, so don't ask. Their minds simply resonate with the way. When the way is present, so are they.
Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns. And I'm here to tell you, 1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms.
While others are blind to it, and society begs you to ignore it, the way stirs you inside. Neurological repression blocks most people's awareness of the way. Censoring all thoughts and impulses from the unconscious is their prefrontal cortex, the Gestapo of the brain. Nothing which violates its socialized programming even gets through. But your mind is different. Your mind has been cracked wide open to the way by some miraculous genetic trait, some psychotropic chemical, or maybe even by the will of your own soul. Your brain's reward pathways have been hijacked, dopamine employed to overthrow the fascist dictatorship of your prefrontal cortex. Now your brain is free of repression, your mind free of censorship, your awareness exposed to the turbulent seas of the unconscious. Through this open doorway, divine light shines into your consciousness, showing you the way. This is what makes you a wayseer. 90% of human civilization is populated with those whose brains are blocked to the way. Their brains are hardwired to enforce the social programming indoctrinated since birth. Unlike you, they cannot break out of this programming because they have not yet experienced the necessary revolution of mind. These programmed people take social institutions and rules very seriously. Society is full of games programmed to keep people's minds occupied so they will not revolt. These games often cause sick fixations on peculiar protocols, power structures, taboos, and domination, all subtle forms of human bondage. This distinct form of madness is not only tolerated by the masses, but insisted upon. The programmed ones believe in rules so forcefully, they become willing to destroy anyone who violates them. Wayseers are the ones who call their bluff. Since Wayseer minds are free to reject social programming, Wayseers readily see these social institutions for what they are, imaginary games. Wayseers comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. Helping those who are lost in these games and refuse to help themselves is the calling of many Wayseers. Since Wayseers are the ones who keep contact with the original source of reality, they are able to disrupt societal conventions and even governments to realign humanity with the way. The Wayseers are an ancient lineage, a kind of priesthood, carriers of the flame, ones in the know. There must always be Wayseers to reform the dizzying, psychotic, spinning wheels of society. Giant, mindless hamster wheels obscuring the pure blue sky, keeping humanity shackled in a darkened cage. So Wayseers are called to shed light on the madness of society, to continually resurrect the timeless, transcendent spirit of truth. Wayseers reveal this divine truth by devoting themselves to the birth of some creative or disruptive act, expressed through art or philosophy. Innovations that shake up industry, revolutions for democracy, coups that topple hypocrisy, movements of solidarity, changes that leave a legacy, rebellions against policy, spirit-infused technology, moments of clarity, things that challenge barbarity, watersheds of sincerity, momentous drives for charity. We are all the same.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweigh the dangers which are cited to justify it. Illuminati, you've come to take control. You can take my heartbeat, but you can break my soul.
It's time to face the facts, join our hands, make a stand. It's time to gather plans, get the shot, take the chance. Till there is no one left, stay correct to the death. They can't ever break a freedom, we will never let it. The corrupt politics is killing the system. Cynicism is it, and it's everything that you witness. They tell you what to think, make you believe that they're the realness. They feed us full of lies, and yet we always forgive them. It's all conspiracy, and if you're free to enter it, you're the puppet. The government's pulling strings from above you. It's time for the introduction to truth, and let's start a movement. We've all been brainwashed, they believe that we all are stupid. We believe in what we see and whatever our ears are hearing. But if you look close, listen, gather your own opinion, you'll understand all the lies, lines and what's between them. This word is not your oyster, this word is a fucking prison. Illuminati, you've come to take control. You can take my heartbeat, but you can break my soul. We all are blind to what's happening in our nation. No one will stand up for the fear of assassination. So they strip us of everything. We stand there and just take it. We're scared to make a stand, a false flag operation. Research Illuminati, find out by 9/11. You see they line their pockets, don't believe the lies they tell you. Trying to see the truth, realize we need to do whatever it is we can to protect our livelihood. It's time for us to prove whether conspiracy or not. They owe some explanations to the questions that we got. What are the lying beneath all these secretive meats. Got you lying between your teeth. What's with the Bilderberg? I'm burning your effigies. I'm praying to Lucifer. How Satanist can you be? While all of the time praying you believing in the beast, just to keep up appearances within Christianity. Come on. You'll never take control. Your new world order will lead to Ain't no reforming, we have to stay strong. They try to shut us down or turn around, let us storm them. We got the warnings, let us march from the morning through the night. We gon' fight and close the eye and overthrow all these damn secret societies. Why we gotta stand for the new world proprieties? The evidence is clear, we're naive to the lies. Illuminati wolves kill the sheep in the night. When will we learn? When will we see what is right underneath all our eyes? This whole time realize we've been deceived and they're trying to deplete us. They brainwashed our minds, may our souls stay free from corruption. Never trust them, let them get ahead. Even if we chant a march to the very end, nevertheless, let them know we will never rest. Till I bid in my beatrium noster head. Come on, Illuminati, you'll never take control. Your new world order will lead to none at all.
I just wanna live and dream, but nothing is as what it seems. And baby, it's making me crazy. I just wanna fight and scream. There's nothing left for me to say. Fear shot to defeat the day. I know that I can control it, so it doesn't have to be this way.
I'm really sick of living, stuck and trapped in the system. You're just a brick in the wall, and I got my back up against it. I represent the resistance, they want me back up in prison. But I'm the master of my path, and I won't slack on my mission. You're lacking the vision, so I'm just gonna cut to the chase. They hide the truth in plain view, right in front of your face. I used to think the world was normal, but that wasn't the case. We're just some goyim on a hamster wheel, running in place. Turn up the bass, I grab the microphone, and all I do is rock it. This little light of mine, I let it shine, and you can't stop it. But there's nothing these corporations just won't do for profit. This fake ass world that we live in is sick, it's truly toxic. If you don't see it that way, okay then keep talking. Don't bump into that wall while you're sleepwalking. The alarm is going off, I hear it beep often. I'm at the double doors of truth, I'm gonna keep knocking.
I just want to live and dream, but nothing is as what it seems. And baby, it's making me crazy. I just want to fight and scream. There's nothing left for me to say. Try to defeat the day. I know that I can control it, so it doesn't have to be this way.
Refuse to just go quietly into the night. There's forces of darkness at work and they're restricting the light. I'm so fed up with the lies they tell us this isn't right. It's ODD TV, you best believe I'll get up and fight. This is my plight, I'll never let you cowards get the best of me. Took the red pill, now it's time to fulfill my destiny. Living like I'm Neo, dipping from my P.O. Tripping on me cause I am the one and he's a zero. Hot like a jalapeno, bringing heat that you just can't avoid. I call out bullshit and lies, they call me paranoid. People are just foolish, full of hate, they get angry. Point out the truth about reality, they label you crazy. Just a glitch in the system, you're a critical thinker. And no, they don't want that. Fuck them, give them the finger. I do it every single day with each and everything I say. I'm not living like a victim, it doesn't have to be this way.
I just wanna live and dream, but nothing is as what it seems. And baby, it's making me crazy. I just wanna